Okay. I just wanted to remind you, first of all, that as we get into the actual like programming assignments, the STEM Center has peer tutors. So if you ever get stuck on something or you run into uh like a Java problem that um I'm maybe not available imminently to solve, you can always go to the STEM Center and try and see if they can help you. All right, so let me talk to you about Lab 1. Um, Going to 222 to my sample project. Let me show you what the issue ended up being with the class path file. So that's a file that's included when you clone the lab. And the issue here was I was saying use a JRE, like use the Java that you installed, but I was mistakenly saying use Java SE 22, like use the 22nd version of this, which is what I have installed. The problem is you have a different version. And so when I said use this specific version and then you clone it, then it complains because it says, I don't have this version installed. Therefore, I don't want to do anything. Maybe you had version 22 installed. That could be the option. So anyway, that's what the issue was. Um, so I have a fix, which is first, if you wrote any code, I would like you to save it somewhere. Um, or you can just leave it as is and then open up the file later. Because I want you to save your code, just like in a text editor or something, because we need to delete the errant project from Eclipse and then reclone it because I've edited the class path so that it's fixed. Um, so we have to delete it and then reclone it. I'm going to show you how to delete it. Hi, is it censored? Okay. I was walking around there earlier. All right. Okay. So this is I tried 5 times. I've also tried this on 2 different computers, so I'm reasonably confident that this has fixed it. So to delete the errant project, first we need to find it in Package Explorer. So if you open up Eclipse and you find it, make sure you're in the Java perspective. And then you can right click and delete. Now it's gonna give you a warning to say, hey, are you sure you want to do this? You don't have to delete the contents on disk. That means that later I can go to, if I go to Finder, I've got Eclipse Workspace saved as a shortcut. But let me just show you kind of what's going on here. So in my like user folder on my computer, right? My username is SRR6. So I've got a user folder on my computer. Um, I've got Eclipse Workspace, which is where all my Java files live. And I've got Git, which is where all the things that I clone in Eclipse live. And so if I open this, you can see all of the times that I've tried to clone lab 1, right? And so these are all still there. So So like all those files are still there, so you can go back and access them if you need to. So if we don't check that box, then it'll still live in this folder that it tells you. So I'll click OK. And now we can go through the process again to clone the lab. So again, that's going to the Git perspective, going to the clone icon, the little cloud with the green arrow, clone URI, and then I have to go find the link. Oh, there's also, I had to change the lab 1 assignment because I needed to add the groups. But here we've got the repository. I hit the green button to get the code. Then I hit the copy URL to clipboard. And then going back to Eclipse, paste it there, hit next, hit next. I'm going to rename it Sarah R for Reels or something. If I just named it Sarah R, it's gonna tell me that, hey, you've already got something there named Sarah R CS222 Labo 1. So you can like add another letter or add your middle initial or something just to make it a little bit different, and then it'll be okay with that. And then make sure that this box is checked, import all existing Eclipse projects, and then click finish. So now I've got my one for Reels right here. And if I go back to the Java perspective, lab 1, no errors.
How do you import the link again? What button you hit?
The link, so like, how do you get this link?
Where do you put that after?
Where do you put this one? Okay, so you copy this in the Git perspective, hit the clone repository. The cloud, it's a little, yeah, so there's new Git repository or adding existing local Git repository, but we want to clone.
Clone URI. Right?
Yeah, so clone URI and then stick it right there. Okay, so I'm gonna walk around the room and make sure that we've got there. Once we do that, so just if you've got it, I'm just gonna come around and check and answer questions if needed. And then once we do that, I need to explain how the test cases work. So we'll try this. You get it?
If I didn't, it's like I think my code is perfect.
Yeah, as long as it runs.
Yeah.
Does your test also work?
That I'm sure about.
So open one of them. And then play button. Okay. Yeah. Did you get it working? Is it working in Eclipse? You have a bunch of weird errors.
It's just this.
I want to see. I'm sorry, it's very small. Okay, so I think you're okay.
How do you get the length of an array?
I will talk about that. You get it working? Yeah. If it's working and there's, yeah, see, there's no like big exclamation point, then you're good. Working.
They all have errors like
Yeah, so you've declared and initialized, so you're good. Yeah. Yeah. You've got your GRE system library, there's no big red exclamation point in the project icon. Okay, so let's open source, or open, yeah, open source. And then main. And then beginning. And just run that. Yeah. Project. Cause that's where it lives. Next. And now. Well, if you run beginnings, Great. You're there. You're not good. Like. Hi, waiting to question real. No, so that's so that's your username page after the gets. Yes. Where would you find it? Which has like, yeah, first name, no one is that. All right, so yes, not yet, all right. Right, if you've got this one, so you can always access it later. So I think, because the problem is it only wants to display the project, like one project thing at a time.
Okay.
So that's why we had to delete it.
Okay.
But it doesn't delete it, like all the files are still there,
Yeah. Okay.
that we can still read.
Oh, it should be done. I should be good.
Yes. And then just do not select delete project on it. And then if we go back to, yes. Find the one that you that is correct. Okay, right click on that. And we'll go to the import. Projects. No, right, yeah. Yes. Now go to. Yep. Okay. Okay, so the other thing I need to do is I need to explain the JUnit test cases. So you may notice that JUnit 5 is included in this. That JUnit is just unit tests are used to help test the code that you write. So if you write a function, unit tests just help to ensure that it does what you said it will do. So I've written unit tests that, for example, for middle, I'll define an array. We'll talk about arrays in a second. And then I define, here's what I expect as the sum. And then I call your method that you write. And then I check whether the results are the same. So I check whether the thing you gave me is the thing I expect. And so there's multiple tests for each of those. So there's 3 for the for loop, and I would also assume 3 for the while loop, right? So that's testing the code in middle. So for a lot of labs, the test results are what I'm going to grade you on. So you pass 5 out of 5 tests, you get 100%. You pass 4 out of 5 tests, you get 80%. Is that the math? Yeah, I think that's the math. So that's the idea for grading wise. To actually run the tests, first you need to open, so let's say you just finished middle and you want to test it out. So I open middle tests and then I run it just like a normal class. And when that happens, something shows up. It opens a different tab called JUnit. And this says a couple things. So first of all, if everything passes, this is going to be green. I haven't implemented anything there, so it's not green. And you can see, if you look very carefully, there's little X's next to each of the test names. That just means I didn't pass any of the tests. Once all the tests are green, you're good to go. The failure trace thing, this is how you can see what happened. So like for the for sum test 03, it's looking for 225 as the sum, but I gave 0 because I haven't implemented it. So that explains why it would fail. But in terms of errors, you shouldn't use this as debugging. You should be confident that like the middle.java works first and then run the tests, because it's not going to give you any meaningful information. It's just going to tell you, hey, these numbers are not equal. That's all the information. Yeah, let me show you end test. Yeah, and so that's a similar thing where it tells you, here's the information it expects, here's what it got. So just make sure to run the tests before doing the lab. If you're in VS Code, let's see, this is the one, open in VS Code. Let's open, so it lives in source, lives in tests. If you're in VS Code, then it comes up like this. And to run the tests, this is actually how I do it. I prefer grading in VS Code because it's easier for me that way. I just click there's multiple play buttons down by each test, but there's like 2 overlapping ones at the top. So just run all of them. And then this thing pops up. I have to go to test results tab to get the thing on the right, which says you didn't pass any of them. So it tells you the same thing, just slightly different format. Any questions about the tests? Yeah.
We run like 1 minute and it's not popping up. Or
Okay, let me come around and see. I also really appreciate your patience as we get started. The first lab is always the hardest. So you're in the beginning. So you need to go to one of the end, test, the file that says something test.java. So those live in the source folder. And then in the test. Yeah. Okay. Now I need to talk to you about arrays. Okay. So I didn't get a chance to grade the packets. But I have a small packet addition. That, because we have to talk about arrays, because I forgot that lab one included arrays. Okay, I've added more slides and I don't remember if I've re-uploaded this to Canvas. If I haven't, I will after this class. Okay, so we've got to talk about arrays. I think there should be an extra one. Yeah, yeah. I accidentally handed you everything in the folder. So I may have handed you extra. Correct.
These are.
So this is just the one page because I realized that I needed to give you this information. Okay. So we need to talk about arrays. To do that, we're going to start with what we remember from Python. Does everybody remember using lists in Python? Right? So they look something like this. We've got square brackets and things separated by commas. That's the idea. In Python, we can have a list of like integers. We can have a list of strings. We can also mix and match. Python's not picky. This is the moral of the story. Python's not picky. Java is picky. And so if we want to have a mix of different data types, that's okay in Python, but not in Java. In general, lists are this kind of linear structure where here we've got the first thing and then we have the next thing. That's how these work. Like we've got, this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We would have 1 here, 2 here, 3 here, 4 here, 5 here, and so on, right? We can draw it with boxes. So if that's the first problem, if you disregard the arrows, it's just just drawing with boxes. That's how we represent an array. So the example that I have is like if we were defining a list in Python, let's say we have a bag or a box of candy. And with, you know, those like cardboard boxes that you can like add inserts in to separate things out. That's kind of what I'm imagining. Where if we've got a big long cardboard box and in each thing is a piece of candy. Yeah.
Does one of the boxes have like the Milky Way?
Yes, it does, in fact. It is, I mean, it's technically Milky Way. So. Okay. So in Java, they're called something different and they work a little bit differently. So in Java, what we knew as lists we typically call arrays. And arrays are restricted to only one type inside. So like we only will allow ints or will only allow strings. As a reminder, we talked a little bit about this earlier, where you know how we declare a variable like the type name and then the variable name? It's similar. So it's only a little bit different for an array. So there's, again, with regular variables, how there's declaring and initializing. With arrays, we have two main steps of declaring and allocating. So where we still have to declare it, but this time we add some empty brackets after the type name. That just says, I'm going to have an array filled with this type. So this is the sort of thing that's going to go into my array. And then to allocate it, allocating is when we say, here's how big it's going to be. So we have new type name and then size. So this is how big I want my array to be. This is something that we need to do in Java that we didn't in Python. In Python, you can just say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then later you can add 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. We can't do that. In Java, when we start off, we have to say, here's how big it is. And then it's going to be that size forever. So again, you can do these two steps in separate lines, separate statements, or all in one line. Okay, that's number 15 of just the general process. And we'll practice this as well. Let's see what's next. Let's actually practice this. Let's go. I'm going to go to February 11th. The exact file doesn't matter, but just. So let's say to declare an array of integers, I would say the type name, which is int, lowercase I, and then my variable name, which is, I don't know, array of ints. That's declaring.
I think int is the I in brackets.
It's int and then open close bracket. There's nothing inside the brackets. And it doesn't have to be right after. If you have a space between them, that's okay. Let's try if we have it there.
The array of.
Array of ints, which I read as array of ints.
That necessary?
No, this could be whatever you want. You have a key smash there and it still works. That's just the variable name. You're the designer. You get to decide what the variable name is. We'll go back to array of ints. And then to allocate it, I'll say array of ints equals new int. And then I need my bracket. If I don't put anything there, it says variable must provide either dimension expressions or array initializer. What that's saying is, tell me how big it is, dummy, or give me the actual values. So I'm going to tell it how big it is. So if I want it to have 10 things, there, now it's happy.
Hold on,
I'll pause here for a second. Yeah. All in one line. Great question. Let's make it an array of doubles this time. Say I want my array to have 4 doubles. You just set, like, you ignore the semicolon and ignore the variable name and just set them equal to each other. So for me, it's blue in the brackets. That says, here's how big the array is going to be. Can I move on?
That's the third line stamp.
That's just doing the same kind of thing, just all in one line. So it says double, I've named it dub or R. And then the brackets equals new double bracket 4. Okay. So the reason that we have to specify the size is that arrays have limited space in memory. So the way Java works is it asks us to say, here's how big it is. Here's how big it's going to be. That way we only use the spots that we'll need. If we need more space, then we do something called reallocation. That's a problem that's going to be in lab 2. So I'll leave discussion of that for later. But just know that the space we have is the space we got. We can't add or subtract once we allocate the array. What's that one? Oh, 16 is just the word allocation. Okay, so for example, this array full of candy has 10 spaces, and so we'll declare, and that's an incorrect word. We'll declare and allocate it by doing candy, empty brackets, candy box, which is the name of the variable, and then equals new candy 10. Man, that went. Okay. Is this clear so far? Great. Another way to define arrays, which you'll see me doing in actually multiple spaces in the lab. Let's look up middle. And if we go all the way down to the main. So the way that we can set it up without saying, so we can either set it up and then add the values later, or set it up with the initial values all in one go. So this is what I've done. This is kind of like what you would do in Python, where you say like my list equals brackets 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Right? This is a way of doing that, where we use curly brackets instead of square brackets, and you just add the things separated by commas. The left-hand side is still the same, where you have the type of thing that's going here, empty square brackets, and the variable name. Okay, I'm going to go back to the slides. You can't change the size of this if you forget something. So if you forget something, then you need to make a new array later and add everything that you actually want it to be there. 17. That's just, if you write this down, I'm happy. The packet mostly just to help you remember what's going on. Question?
You can have just a parentheses
The parentheses instead of curly brackets? Let's test it out. Let's see, where was I? I was over here. Apparently not. Did you get it on yours?
like, did I try it out?
Yeah.
No, I just like it.
Oh,
But you can't.
apparently not. If we changed it to curly brackets, then we're all good. So it has to be curly brackets. I didn't mention this in the slides, which was remiss of me. But to get the size of the array, let's say I want to print the size. Let's say array test has size. I can say test dot. I always get this mixed up. Length. So test dot length gives me the length of the array. That's equivalent to in Python when you said like len of test. Oops, sorry. Test dot length tells you how long it is. What do you mean? That's a really good question. So if I run this, it prints that my array test has size 3, which makes sense because there's 3 things in there. But if I just wanted to print the actual array itself, it gives me some weird jumble of things. That's to be expected. We'll talk about that later in a bit. Later as in probably in the next unit. Okay. So a small example is declare and which you've probably done already. How do I declare and allocate an array of integers that's initially 20 spaces large? Tell me what to write.
One or 19, like, is the indexing start to zero with element?
That's a fantastic question. Let's test it out. Okay, so let's work with I've got a size 10 here. Let's go through and actually, well, let's first see how long array of ints is. There's nothing in there. Array of ints dot
When
length.
when you did it for test, it said 3, so I'm assuming it starts at 1. Like in the console.
Right, so size, so in Java in general, counting starts at 0. But size tells me how many things are in there. So what I expect is that the length will be 0. Because I've allocated space, but I haven't put anything in it. Oh no, I was wrong. I was wrong. So I've allocated 10 spaces. Do you remember accessing via index in Python? Like doing the bracket number at all? Yeah. I'll talk about this in a second too. How is it spelled? So if I ask to print the very first thing, it prints 0, which I think it just initializes all of the integers in there as 0. That's what I think happened. So let's, here, let's write a for loop. I'll say, for int I equals 0. I probably already used I up here. I did. Let's make it k then. So to go through the array, I'm going to say as long as k is less than array of ints dot length k plus plus. Right, so we're going through we start counting at 0 and we're going to go until we get to the length of the array.
I less than array name.
This part?
Yeah.
So remember the middle part is our condition, right? That tells us when we're going to stop counting. And so since we're going through this array, we want to stop when we're at the end of the array. So I'm going to print everything. And I'm going to say array at a and so the way that I access the kth thing in the array events is with the square brackets after it. So I just want to see what's in here. Oh, look, everything is 0. So the answer is it does assign, when I allocated the array space for integers, it gave me some initial values, which are just 0.
I'm not sure if we should use the less than or equal to sign, because when I tried that, it went one space off. It went one space off the length of the array.
Right, and is that a problem?
Yes.
Yeah. So this is the thing, because Java starts counting at 0, we want to go 0 through 9 for an array of 10. And that's what less than allows us to do. Okay. This is more of the same. How we access array things is a matter of indices versus the actual items. So that's like accessing the Skittles by saying they're in the 4th box. And so to get the actual Skittles, you need to say candy box bracket 4. You can, so let's say instead of, and I want to get to the lab, I'm aware. So let's say instead of printing something, I'll just comment that out. I want to change, instead of 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, I want it to be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, so on. So I can say array of ints at position k is equal to k. If I do that and run it, well, now I deleted the thing that I print everything. Now I get 0 through 9. Okay, so I'm hopefully giving you the tools that you need to complete the middle part of the lab. So I think at this point, I can come around and answer more questions about arrays if I need to. I would like you to get back in your groups. I'll stop recording and then pull up the groups. And then for the rest of the time, just work on lab 1 in your groups and then submit to Canvas when you're done. And if you are already done, or if you've got extra time, then work on homework 1. And then once you're done with that, then you're free to go.